right. Joining me on this very first episode of Crypto Prime is the absolute perfect person, Randy Wasinger, founder and CEO of CryptoSlam. And we'll obviously get into what CryptoSlam does, but I'll tell you, I've known Randy for over 15 years now. He's based right here in Kansas City, if you can't tell. And I always talk about how there are so many smart people involved in crypto. I've said some of the smartest minds that I interact with on a daily basis across both TradFi and DeFi are involved in crypto in some capacity. And Randy absolutely fits into that category, though, as I think you'll see, he is a very humble person, but that's perfect because I also say a lot of these smart people, they are simply very quietly building behind the scenes in crypto. And one of the things that I'm going to do with this podcast, one of my key goals is to highlight these individuals because they are indicative of where I believe this entire space is heading. And so without further ado, Randy, welcome to the podcast. Always great to connect.
Well, thanks for that intro, Nate. Smart guys in crypto. Yeah, I don't know if I'd put myself on the list. Like, I think I put you on the list when I'm telling other people about you know people that I trust for for information about what's going on. Been a big fan of ETF Prime for forever, and like your ability to I don't know make sense of yeah the the crypto ETFs that finally came in 2024, and your crystal ball with that's has been outstanding. So anyway, congrats on those predictions, by the way.
Well, thank you. I love that you're flattering me on my own podcast. This is the perfect way to kick this off. It's funny because obviously we're both based here in Kansas City. And as you know, with some of my other business endeavors, I visit with people all across the country. But interestingly, with your business endeavors, you're visiting with people all across the world. And yet here we are in, quote unquote, flyover country. And so if I do nothing else with this podcast, we are going to put Kansas City on the map when it comes to crypto. That's a key goal here. So hopefully we can do that.
Yeah, let's do it and go Royals while we're at it.
That's right in the midst of a pennant race. Okay, so there's a lot I want to talk about, obviously, when it comes to crypto and building out Web3. But let's start with your journey to get to this point. So maybe tell us what you were doing prior to CryptoSlam. And then I always love hearing the crypto origin stories from people like, when did you first become interested in the space? And then how did that lead to your founding of CryptoSlam?
Yeah, prior to CryptoSlam, I ran a handful of tech businesses here in Kansas City. Some were remote, others were not. So yeah, got involved with like search engine marketing. Uh, Ended up in display ad arbitrage of all things, which was important because had to get really good at databases and working with lots of data because it would come in handy with CryptoSlam. How do you index a lot of data and make sense out of it to where you can actually use it? So that would have been like prior to CryptoSlam, just basically being a nerd trying to make money, and was fairly successful off and on. Made plenty of mistakes along the way too, but yeah, in general, uh, it's been great, and was always looking for the next opportunity. So that happened in 2018. I got into crypto through so my first crypto purchases were to actually buy NFTs when hardly anybody else was buying NFTs. So uh, I would like fund my Coinbase account and immediately take that Ethereum, which I wish I still had some of that, by the way, and funnel it directly into NFTs. It was a project called MLB Champions. Obviously, a big baseball fan, and it was at that time billed as the first officially licensed digital collectible on the blockchain. I've been an avid baseball card collector my entire life. Started as a kid, never gave it up, and so yeah, I saw the value of you know getting the first ones and going in big. So I just had fun with it. And yeah, got into crypto through NFTs. So my crypto origin story, my NFT origin story actually feeds into CryptoSlam because I realized pretty quickly at that time there was nobody tracking what was on the blockchain. So I was buying all these NFTs, spending a decent chunk on it, but it was like, well, what are these worth? What if I bought a Salvador Perez? How many are there? Um, what are these selling for? What's the value? What's everybody else doing? Like these things we take for granted in the industry now just didn't exist back then. So I didn't I didn't think, well, yeah, I'm going to do a crypto startup and take it to the moon or anything like that. It was just more, I bought a lot of NFTs and um, I don't know what's going on with them. So I'm just going to have fun with it and build something for me. So I did that. That became CryptoSlam. I shared it with the small community at the time, and everybody loved it. So yeah, knew at that point, that would have been early 2019 that I was onto something. So yeah, I've just been running with it and never really looked back.
And I know there's a lot that Crypto Slam does, but if I were to summarize just in a nutshell, essentially it's a one-stop shop to track and value NFTs, right? You're solving this problem of aggregating all of this data across various blockchains, and you're providing that data, that intelligence to buyers and sellers of NFTs. Is that it in a nutshell?
It is. And when it started out just tracking the one collection, MLB Champions, there was maybe 200, 300,000 NFTs. And, you know, there, yeah, just wasn't a lot on the blockchain at the time. Well, fast forward to now, there's literally billions of NFTs. There's probably been, you know, 10,000, 50,000 NFTs minted since we started this podcast today. So it's just exploding, and so how do you make sense of that? That's what we do. We track everything, or we listen to the blockchain. We recognize events that people are going to care about, like mints and sales and those types of things, and organize it in a way that where you can instantly go and know what's going on. So if you go to CryptoSlam right now, it's like I don't know. I think of it as like the scoreboard for the NFT industry.
Let me ask you this. For somebody who is not close to this space, so NFTs, I'd love to have you explain what you see as the value here, because I'll tell you from the TradFi side, a lot of people do look at NFTs as just, JPEGs or whatever, right? The old joke that I can just right click and copy and paste an image, and now I own it too. And as I was alluding to at the top, Randy, I mean, my goal with this podcast is is really to serve as a bridge to help educate TradFi on DeFi and the potential value, but also the other way around, right? Bring some TradFi to the DeFi space. But high level, explain what you perceive is the basic value of an NFT.
Yeah, and I'll start by speaking directly to your TradFi listeners, like that instinct that you have, that that skepticism you have. I would say largely you're right. Um, and so what did I mention? Like, let's say there's been 10 billion NFTs minted. I'm sure we have the number. I don't have it off the top of my head. The problem is the vast majority of those are junk. They are worthless. So like the skepticism. So like let's say it's 99% of them. You know, take that skepticism and funnel it towards that 99%. Like you're right. There's just a lot of we can get into that a bit. Like just there's been a lot of junk, that honestly we have to track as CryptoSlam. I know better than anybody, just because I see it on a day-to-day basis and have for years. So the value prop would be in that other 1%, that which isn't junk. So the the what got me into it was the collectibles. NBA Top Shot was a huge success story for crypto in general, NFTs. It onboarded a lot of people. Like those, I wouldn't say it had the happy ending a lot of people were hoping for, but it's a great application. Has lots of users today, and collectibles is a obvious use case for NFTs. So you've got that, and then just digital property rights in general. So anything, you know, trying to think of the next best example. Gaming is really come a long ways already, like owning the in-game assets, tokenization of real world assets. So like there's a handful of specific use cases where NFTs make a ton of sense. And so yeah, that's where if I was somebody coming in like from TradFi, where that's where I would look for opportunities and focus my attention and draw a clear line. If you think it's junk, it probably is.
By the way, I still own some NBA Top Shots, just for the record. So
Yeah, as do I.
I went up and down with the market. But just to unpack that a little bit further, explain what blockchain is solving here. And we can use, if you want to use NBA Top Shot or some other collectible, I just really want to hone in. Again, if I'm in TradFi, what is the problem that's been solved here?
I would say it's so if we're talking collectibles specifically, I don't know if it has quite been solved yet. Like, um, at the end of the day, like the enjoyment I get out of owning, I actually own a really good, rare Shohei Ohtani 2018 rookie year on MLB Champions. Someday, like this will be. I'm convinced it's the grail of NFTs. But is that like any better than a Shohei Ohtani or a Salvador Perez I can hold in my hand? I don't know if it necessarily is. I would say it's equal, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily better. And so, what I think we still need to solve as an industry is how do we how do we take advantage of that collectible, that asset being on the blockchain and make it interoperable? Like, how do we let other developers build on top of the NBA Top Shots that I own, or the MLB Champions, or really anything else? Or if I launch a game, it's not just about um, how much fun can I make my game for users to come and play. Do you really need blockchain for that? Like, honestly, this is what I would ask any game developer: do you need blockchain for it, or are you just taking advantage of a hot technology? If the answer is no, then probably it's I would imagine it's going to fizzle out. So the problem we need to solve is how do we make those how do we take advantage of the blockchain and make those assets interoperable to where others can come and collaboratively build on top of it. That's when I think we have our next moment as an industry with NFTs in particular.
Is part of that tying NFTs to real world experiences? And I know that's a little bit cliche, but I'll tell you there was a project. So I'm a University of Kansas graduate, diehard Jayhawk basketball fan. There was a company called Mercury who was developing NFTs in partnership with KU. And one of the things that they did was when you bought certain NFTs, and obviously there was some were more rare than others, they would tie those to real world experiences, whether that was tickets to a game, jerseys from KU players, those sorts of things. And I thought it was a pretty novel concept. Is that part of the problem that needs to be solved here as well? When you talk about, I understand you're talking about interoperability, but is it tying NFTs to real world experiences too?
I think it helps, but I would actually say no, because I would go back and ask the question again: do we need the blockchain for this?
Hmm.
And probably not. Like, what you get when you mint, um, like when you take an asset and you wrap it and you mint it, you do get to take advantage of uh, like the DeFi rails on the blockchain, which I guess that's nice because these assets then become more liquid. But still, at the end of the day, I don't think you necessarily need blockchain for those if that's all you're doing with it. Now, if you're again
Hmm.
letting others build on top of what you created, that's not possible without trustlessly too, like not or in sorry, not trustlessly, but permissionlessly.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just don't think you need it. So this is one of my biggest pet peeves of the blockchain industry. When I got into it, like everybody was very um, I don't know. There were a lot of awesome ideas of what the future of blockchain was and what problems it was going to solve. And then, the adoption blew up, the activity blew up, and everybody started focusing on, not everybody, but most started focusing on, well, how can we make money on this right now? Not necessarily what applications are needed and yeah, what's uniquely solved by the blockchain. So I think we're going to get there. I'm optimistic, but I feel strongly that we haven't gotten there yet.
When I think about building long term here in this space, and I think about what CryptoSlam does in terms of pulling data across multiple blockchains, right? Because again, NFTs are minted on a variety of chains. It seems like there is a tremendous explosion of new blockchains out there. And I'm curious from your perspective, when you talk about, building here in this environment, is that explosion of blockchains a positive? Does that show innovation, or is it a negative because the market can't coalesce around, some quote unquote winners? How do you view that in building here?
I want to say it can be a positive, but in general, it's so far, I would say it's not necessarily been the best thing. And here's why. So like when I would have coded my first website, this will tell you how old I am, would have been like in the late 90s. This was the beauty of Web 1. Like I could learn a language, maybe two. So you learn HTML, maybe some JavaScript, CSS, and you write an application and you put it on the internet, and instantly it was accessible by literally the entire world. By that point, we had moved beyond like the AOL and CompuServe and whatever else was out there at the time. That was a closed ecosystem. And I as a developer could build an application. Anybody on the planet could access that through the HTTP. Contrast that with what's happening now. If I'm a developer, um, and I build an application, like I have to choose um, which blockchain do I deploy it on? And there's an increase, like every day, it seems like there's a new chain. So I can go launch it on a certain chain, but it is not instantly accessible in Web3 by the entire world. And I think that's yeah a problem with adoption. And even like the technologies, like you've got it is nice. You've got like the EVM technology, like a lot of the blockchains run off of that same technology. So if I'm a developer, I can write in one language, and presumably I could deploy it on a bunch of different ones. And so there's a handful of different stacks, but you know, aside from that, it's tough. And so developers are choiced with where am I going to deploy and why. So it's a very competitive environment too with the chains. They're all fighting for developers because they have to.
That's what I was going to get at. I mean, so longer term, are the winners here going to be whichever chains can attract the most developers or the top developers? Is that who wins this? I mean, we're still so early, but from what you're saying there, it sounds like that's a really key cog in this entire machine.
Yeah, absolutely. Like without the developers, you don't have the applications. Without the applications, you're not going to get the the users.
Somewhat related here, I have to bring this up, though I don't want to get too far into the weeds. You had mentioned to me offline that you had some rather strong views on ordinals and runes and BRC20s on Bitcoin, which obviously some would say that's the only chain if you're a Bitcoin maxi. I think obviously, as we're talking about here today, there's other chains that will have use cases. But do you want to explain that? Because I do think that's related in terms of which chains are best situated for the NFT market in particular as it continues to evolve.
Yeah, and I'll preface the answer too by saying, um, you know, these other chains, I would ask them like, what do you do specifically that can't be done on Ethereum or that can't be done on Solana? Uh, so now I'll answer the Bitcoin question, because what what happened was developers started deploying applications in the form of like, I guess you can call them NFTs. They're called inscriptions with ordinals. So they were deploying it on a chain that you absolutely could do on Ethereum, and you absolutely could do it on Polygon and Solana and others. And the question was why? Like, it was, and the answer why is because that's where the money was, not because you needed to have NFT collections trading on Bitcoin. We did a tweet like a week or two ago where it was like, this day or this month in NFT history. I think it was 2021. Traders spent, it was something crazy like 100 or 200 million dollars in gas fees. So like transaction fees to mint crappy NFTs, most of which are long gone at this point. That would have been in August of 2021. So as history repeated itself, that's what happened with Bitcoin ordinals and runes starting, whenever it was, like the fall of last year when it exploded. We did the exact same thing. We as an industry, we decided to take our hard-earned BTC and play the crypto casino game, go mint NFTs, in the form of ordinals and runes somewhere else on the Bitcoin chain because it was hot. And the clear winners out of all of this would have been those securing the Bitcoin network, because fees went through the roof. And as predicted, the same thing happened. Activity spiked, but um, you know, there's definitely better if you want to trade, speculative NFTs or coins for fun. There are better places for doing that. Traders are eventually going to find those other places, and it is clearly not Bitcoin. And the fees are way too high. So it was a complete waste of block space. I know it's still happening now, but with very few exceptions, I think there's no need for ordinals on Bitcoin, and even Bitcoin maxis. There's like two camps. There's maxis that really wish that the ordinals would stay away, because Bitcoin's this great store of value. It's a $1 trillion asset at this point. And these people, these traders that are having fun on the Bitcoin chain, are just basically messing that up and making fees higher. So
Such an interesting dynamic there. And I do want to move beyond NFTs, but before we do that, and not investment advice in terms of the tokens for these chains, but it sounds like you are supportive of NFTs on Ethereum. You mentioned Solana. Are there any other chains that you think are best situated for NFTs?
I think it depends on the NFT. Ethereum is great for higher end NFTs. I wouldn't say it's great like specifically collectibles. I think it's fine. Um, any sort of NFT that represents like a gaming asset, Ethereum's honestly terrible for that, and that's why a lot of these L2s popped up in the first place. So yeah, I don't necessarily want to pick sides. We work with a lot of chains at CryptoSlam that are trying to solve that problem of how do you create an environment where these in-game assets are uh, tradable on chain, and not just tradable but usable like within the games themselves. So chains such as Solana, Polygon, Mythical, Flow, are doing great things, to make, yeah, the promise of these applications that people want to see. I know that I want to see, yeah, that they're making that possible.
All right, we have a few minutes left here. I want to broaden out our conversation and move beyond NFTs and just ask you about Web3 overall. And I guess two questions here. Number one, I'd love to have you just describe what Web3 is. And then two, Is there a recent example that you could point to as a win in this space? Because again, I think a lot of TradFi, they just view this all as smoke and mirrors, right? They hear Web3, it's just it's a catchphrase. And so can you point to a tangible example of a success story in this space?
I'll start there. Like the clear biggest success story of 2024 is Polymarket. If you're not familiar, I guarantee you are going to start hearing about it in the mainstream media more and more this election cycle because it has become the go-to source for um, yeah the odds of which candidate's going to win the election here in the U.S. And it's not just the election, obviously, but other prediction markets tied to the election, like specific states and how those are doing, and you can imagine the other types of prediction markets that are popping up around it. And I bring this up because I mentioned back in 2018, like the promise of Web3 and what we were supposed to get. Prediction markets was at the top of the list, but it never necessarily really happened. There were some that were created, but they didn't have like that mainstream adoption. Like we never had a moment in Web3 with prediction markets. Well, we're clearly having it now. It's Polymarkets just had this explosion of users and usage and references in the media, and I don't think there's any turning back at this point. You're seeing, and Polymarket is on Polygon. As expected, you're seeing other prediction markets popping up on other chains, and I just think we're going to see a lot of innovation, a lot of adoption with those yeah with those markets here moving forward. There's really no turning back at this point. Much like when NFTs had their moment, there was no turning back. It's the same with these prediction markets.
And again, what is the problem that you view Polymarket as solving? And maybe you can tie that into just how you would describe what Web3 is overall, and maybe some of the potential problems it can solve longer term.
Polymarket's a storyteller, and it's I don't know. I go there just to see the sentiment on um, are the Chiefs going to win the Super Bowl again? What are the Royals' real chance in the playoffs? Um, who's really leading in the election? Not necessarily what the presumably biased polls might say. So I think people, um, I'm told anyway, tend to bet more accurately with their wallets, and in without blockchain, like I just don't think we've seen like because there's clearly prediction markets outside of blockchain as well, but we haven't necessarily seen like the mainstream adoption that you've seen with Polymarket, and it's not. There's also like a trust issue, I think, with other prediction markets because this is offline now, where like you never know, like do the bookmakers are they, what's real in terms of volume and what's not. With the blockchain, it's very very easy to decipher what's being traded and what isn't. So anyway, I say that because these markets are very very liquid. Like there was a liquid market I saw last week was will Taylor Swift be at the DNC, and it was liquid, and you know uh, it's I just think it's solving an issue of being telling this story of you know within specific markets, of storylines that people want to care about.
Okay, real quick, another topic I have to ask you about is meme coins. And I'll tell you, my TradFi view is that these have actually done a lot of damage to the overall perception of crypto because people see these celebrity meme coins or dog with hat or whatever, and they automatically think beanie babies and scams, stuff like that. Do you agree with that, or do you see some value here in meme coins, not necessarily monetarily with the coins themselves, but is there some value just in terms of their existence?
I'll start out by saying something nice, I guess. To the extent it's making news and bringing some people in, I think meme coins are providing value in that way. But otherwise, I can't stand them. I think they're. I agree with your TradFi buddies. They're terrible for the industry. I think it's predatory in many cases because it's not necessarily it's a game people are playing and it's not fair. It's a select few that are able to control the price and the upward and downward movements. It's yeah, it's in general not good. That said, like um, as long as people aren't going into it expecting to like get a return on an investment, uh, I guess it's fine because I'm not a meme coin trader. I bet 20 years ago, 10 years ago, I don't know. I probably would have done it and had fun. So I'm not judging by any means. I it Yeah, people clearly are having fun in the same way that they have fun pulling the slot machine at a casino. So it is fun. Like if it's just for enjoyment, if it's a way to take my crypto and maybe be able to turn it into some more by playing the game better than the next guy, I'd say more power to them. But I, to the extent though that it's predatory off of people thinking that these things are investments, I think it's bad.
I think our views completely align here. And, I put my investment hat on. I do have concerns that maybe some people don't approach this as playing a game. I think if you come in with that mindset, then fine.
Mhm.
And that opens up, by the way, a whole nother discussion regarding regulation here, which I'm sure I'll be covering quite a bit on this podcast. But yeah, my concern is that people put real money into these and end up getting destroyed over time. But Randy, before I let you go, anything you can tell us about the future for CryptoSlam? I know you're working on a number of very interesting projects right now. Is there anything that you can share about what's next? What's on the roadmap?
Yeah, and I'll preface that too by you know, a quick step back onto the meme coins. They they somewhat erode trust for those like in TradFi that in general that you may have some Bitcoin, you may have some Ethereum, and it's like, well, what else should I accumulate and get involved with? The meme coins take up so much of that oxygen that it's not necessarily evident, what other opportunities are out there. So I said that because what's next for CryptoSlam, we are launch partners or a launch contributor for a project called SlamNet that is launching a token which in our opinion like is a sensible next step for uh, TradFi and other participants in Web3 that want something besides Bitcoin and Ethereum to get involved with, but don't necessarily want to play in the meme coin or even the NFT speculation game. And there's a lot of great projects out there like we're doing with SlamNet that yeah, I think deserve a lot of attention. So what we're doing with CryptoSlam is we are we got really good over the years at aggregating data for NFTs on chain and being those storytellers for people that wanted to make sense of the market. We're going to be doing that for Web3 in general. So all assets, all transactions on all chains. We've been working at that for a while. So that infrastructure is coming out and it's going to be made available and accessible to the world through our partners with or our partner with SlamNet. So long story short, CryptoSlam's helping to we're not launching a token, but we're helping the Slam Foundation launch a token, and it's yeah, something we're insanely excited about. It's all backed by all of the data in Web3, and really can't wait to continue rolling it out and sharing it with the world.
Well, Randy, this was so much fun. I've got to tell you, I'm so glad you could be the inaugural guest for Prime, and I love the Kansas City feel we have here. Again, we're going to put Kansas City on the map from a crypto perspective. But thank you for joining me.
You bet. Enjoyed it.
That was Randy Wasinger, founder and CEO of CryptoSlam. Thank you, everyone, for watching or listening. Again, I'm really excited about what we have in store with Crypto Prime moving forward. So stay tuned, and I hope you join me next time.
Crypto Prime is hosted by Nate Geraci, president of OTR Media LLC. Nate is also president of the investment advisory firm The ETF Store. While OTR Media LLC and the ETF Store are related by common ownership, they are separate and distinct entities, and anything discussed on this program should not be construed as an official statement by the ETF Store. This program is for informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice. Investing in crypto assets involves substantial risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any past performance figures discussed are not necessarily indicative of future results. Visit CryptoPrimePodcast.com for more information.